$100,000 a year as a software developer in San Francisco. 6 years of experience, good job, decent company, solid career trajectory. On paper, he is doing well, better than most. But his one-bedroom apartment costs $3,400 a month, and it is not even a nice one-bedroom. It's a small unit in a building that has not been updated since 1987, with street parking that requires moving his car every 72 hours. That's $40,800 a year just for rent. After federal taxes, California state taxes, and FICA, his take-home from that $122,000 is about $84,000, and half of it goes to his landlord before he buys a single grocery. By the time David pays for food, expensive in San Francisco, and transportation, and the occasional dinner out, and the subscriptions, and the basics of existing in a major city, he saves about $400 a month, sometimes less, sometimes nothing. $400 a month on a $122,000 salary. David has been working for 6 years and he has $23,000 in retirement savings and a used Civic. That is his net worth at 31 years old, and he is exhausted, starting to suspect that no amount of career advancement will ever let him get ahead, because every raise he gets, every promotion, every bump in compensation, it all disappears into the cost of being in San Francisco. Meanwhile, his college roommate Ryan took a remote job 3 years ago and moved to Boise, Idaho. Ryan makes $94,000, almost $30,000 less than David. His rent is $1,400 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment with in-unit laundry and a parking spot. His state income tax is significantly lower. His groceries cost less. His everything costs less. Ryan saves $1,800 a month. He has $130,000 in retirement accounts, and he just put a down payment on a house. David makes more money, but Ryan is getting rich. This is not a puzzle, and it's not a paradox. This is the geography trap, the most overlooked wealth destroyer in personal finance. And if you are living in a high cost of living city, convincing yourself that the career opportunities or the culture or the network makes it worth it, you might be watching your financial future evaporate one rent check at a time. What I'm about to show you might make you rethink everything about your zip code. Here's what nobody tells you about salary. A dollar is not a dollar. $100,000 in Manhattan is a completely different financial reality than $100,000 in Memphis. And the difference is not small. It's not 10 or 20%. In some cases, it's 200, 300, 400%. You can literally multiply your effective wealth by moving without earning a single dollar more. According to the Council for Community and Economic Research, the cost of living in San Francisco is about 80% higher than the national average, with New York City similar and Los Angeles about 50% higher. Meanwhile, cities like Oklahoma City, Memphis, Indianapolis, and Kansas City are 10 to 15% below the national average, and some international locations, Portugal, Mexico, Thailand, Colombia, are 50 to 70% below U.S. average costs. Let me translate this into real money, with a household earning $100,000 after tax. In San Francisco, with an 80% higher cost of living, that $100,000 buys you what $55,000 would buy in an average American city. Your effective purchasing power is nearly cut in half. But in a city that's 20% below average, like Oklahoma City, that same $100,000 buys you what $125,000 would buy elsewhere, making your effective wealth 25% higher without earning a single extra dollar. The spread between San Francisco and Oklahoma City is not marginal, it's transformational. The same income, the same job, the same career, but one version of you is barely scraping by, and the other is building real wealth. Now let me show you how this compounds, because the geography trap doesn't just cost you money today, it costs you exponentially more money over time. David saves $400 a month in San Francisco, while Ryan saves $1,800 a month in Boise, and both invest in index funds earning an average 8% annually. After 20 years, David has approximately $236,000, and Ryan has approximately $1.06 million. The difference is over $800,000, and Ryan didn't make more money, didn't pick better investments, didn't work harder or get luckier. He lived somewhere cheaper, and that's the entire difference. $800,000 over 20 years means $40,000 per year in future wealth that David is sacrificing to live in San Francisco, and that's what his zip code actually costs. Here's what makes the geography trap particularly vicious. The cities that cost the most are the cities that feel the most necessary. San Francisco has the tech jobs, New York has the finance jobs, Los Angeles has the entertainment industry, and these cities have convinced generations of ambitious people that you must be there to succeed, that the opportunities and the network and the density of talent make it worth it. For some people, in some careers, at some stages of life, that might be true. If you're 24 and trying to break into venture capital, you probably need to be in San Francisco for a few years. And if you're building a career on Wall Street, Manhattan is hard to avoid because the early career networking effects are real. But here's what most people don't realize. The career premium of expensive cities has been collapsing for a decade, and it fell off a cliff during the pandemic. Remote work changed everything, and a 2023 study from Stanford economist Nick Bloom found that about 28% of paid workdays in America are now worked from home, with that number stable or growing. Companies that resisted remote work in 2020 have largely accepted hybrid or fully remote arrangements, and the percentage of job postings offering remote options has increased by over 500% since 2019. The technology sector, the industry that most justified San Francisco's costs, has become dramatically more distributed, with Meta, Google, Salesforce, and dozens of major employers now having remote-friendly policies that would have been unthinkable in 2018. The same is true for financial services, consulting, marketing, and most knowledge work. The geography premium was built on a simple assumption: you had to be where the jobs were, and that assumption is no longer universally true. Every day you stay in an expensive city for a job you could do from anywhere, you're paying a tax that no longer buys what it used to buy. Now let me talk about international geography arbitrage, because this is where the math becomes genuinely life-changing. There's a growing population of remote workers who have realized that if your income is not tied to your location, your cost of living shouldn't be either, and they earn American or European salaries while living in countries where that money goes 3, 5, 10 times further. The average monthly cost of living for a single person in Lisbon, Portugal is about $1,400, including rent. In Mexico City, it's about $800. In Medellin, Colombia, about $700. In Chiang Mai, Thailand, about $600. In Da Nang, Vietnam, about $500. Take someone earning $80,000 remotely, a fairly modest salary for experienced remote workers in tech, marketing, or consulting. And after U.S. federal taxes, they take home about $62,000 a year, or about $5,200 a month. If they live in San Francisco, spending $3,400 on rent alone, plus another $2,000 on other expenses, they save maybe negative $200 a month, and going backwards. If they live in Da Nang, spending $500 a month all in, they save $4,700 a month, which is $56,400 a year, over 70% of their gross income. At that savings rate, they hit financial independence in under 10 years, not by earning more, not by investing in crypto or starting a business or getting lucky, but by moving. This is not theory. There are tens of thousands of people doing this right now, and the digital nomad population has been growing by 25% annually for years. They're not all tech bros and Instagram influencers, but accountants, writers, designers, developers, project managers, consultants, normal people with normal jobs who realized that location was the variable with the most leverage.
Now, you might be thinking that this is not just about jobs, that you have friends in your city, family, a community, a life, and you cannot just reduce everything to cost of living math. And you are right. There are reasons to live in expensive places that have nothing to do with money. If your aging parents are in Manhattan and you want to be close to them, that has value. If your entire social network is in Los Angeles and you cannot imagine starting over, that is real. If you genuinely love the culture and energy of a big city and it makes you happy in ways that cheaper places would not, that matters. But here's what I want you to do. Put a number on it. If San Francisco is costing you $40,000 a year in lost wealth building compared to a cheaper alternative, and you choose to stay, you are implicitly saying that what San Francisco offers you is worth $40,000 a year. Maybe it is. Maybe the career opportunities, the dating pool, the restaurants, the weather, the culture, maybe all of that is worth $40,000 a year to you. But have you actually made that calculation? Have you consciously decided that what you're getting is worth what you're paying? Or have you just drifted into an expensive city because that's where the job was, or where your college friends went, or where you assumed you were supposed to be, and now you're trapped by inertia and lifestyle and the friction of moving? Most people in expensive cities have never explicitly made the choice to pay the premium. They've just absorbed it, normalized it, accepted that rent takes half their paycheck because that's just what rent costs, as if geography were destiny instead of a variable they can control. Let me address the other objections I know you have. On career advancement and whether you need to be in person to get promoted. For some roles and some companies, yes, but the data suggests that remote workers are promoted at similar rates to in-office workers when performance metrics are clear. And a 2023 study from Live Data Technologies found that remote workers were actually promoted at slightly higher rates than their in-office counterparts. On taxes and whether you still owe U.S. taxes as a citizen abroad, yes, American citizens owe federal taxes on worldwide income regardless of where they live, but you may qualify for the foreign earned income exclusion, which lets you exclude about $120,000 in foreign earned income from federal taxes. And many countries with low costs of living also have tax treaties or territorial tax systems that further reduce your burden, so the math still works overwhelmingly in favor of lower-cost locations. On healthcare, international health insurance for expats typically costs $300 to $500 a month for comprehensive coverage, far less than the typical cost of living premium of an expensive American city. And many countries have excellent private healthcare at a fraction of U.S. prices, where a doctor visit in Mexico might cost $40, and an MRI that costs $3,000 in the U.S. might cost $300 in Thailand. On loneliness and starting over in a new place, this is real, and moving somewhere new means building a new community from scratch. But expat communities are thriving in affordable cities around the world, with organized meetups, co-working spaces, and digital nomad hubs, where the infrastructure for connection already exists. And the loneliness of being broke in an expensive city, working constantly just to pay rent, never able to save or invest or build toward freedom, that is its own kind of isolation. Here's the framework for thinking about geography as a financial lever. First, calculate your true cost of location by taking your current rent, adding the premium you pay for local goods and services versus national or international averages, adding the state and local tax burden, and comparing your actual savings rate to what it would be somewhere cheaper. This is what your zip code really costs. Second, audit your location dependency and ask whether your income is actually tied to your physical presence, because many people assume they need to be local for jobs that could be done remotely with the right negotiation. And before you accept that your job requires you to be in an expensive city, ask, push, propose a remote or hybrid arrangement. The worst they can say is no, and you might be surprised. Third, run the 10-year projection by taking your current savings rate and projecting it forward at 8%, then taking the savings rate you could achieve in a lower cost location and projecting that forward, because the difference over a decade will likely shock you and is often hundreds of thousands of dollars, enough to retire 5 or 10 years earlier. Fourth, separate the permanent from the temporary, because living in an expensive city for 2 years to build a network or learn from the best in your field might be a worthwhile investment, but living there for 15 years because you never got around to leaving is a financial catastrophe masquerading as a lifestyle choice. Right now, you probably see yourself as someone who lives where you live because that's where your life is. Your job, your friends, your routine, all tied to a specific geography that feels fixed, permanent, given. But there's another way to see it. Your location is not your identity, but an input into your financial equation, and it's the single most leveraged input you have. Income is hard to increase dramatically, investment returns are largely out of your control, and spending can only be cut so far before quality of life suffers. But geography can multiply your effective wealth by 2, 3, 5 times overnight, can compress a 30-year wealth-building timeline into 15, can turn a salary that feels like struggling into a salary that funds freedom. David and Ryan have the same education, the same profession, similar incomes, and 20 years from now, one of them will be rich and one of them will still be catching up. The difference is not intelligence, not luck, not even hard work. It's where they chose to stand while they worked. Your zip code is not destiny, it's a decision, and every day you don't make it consciously, you're paying a tax you never agreed to, a silent drain that is consuming the wealth you should be building. I'm not telling you to move, I'm telling you to calculate what it costs to stay, and then decide if you're getting what you're paying for. I've spent way too much time thinking about this stuff, so you don't have to. If this changed how you see where you live, hit that like button and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.